The next term, which was in news 2 years ago, but UPSC can always ask you much later as well. Okay, it doesn't necessarily ask the term same year, and it has been consistently in news as well. The term is friendshoring. Now, of course, this is a combination of friend plus offshoring, and this was in news because one of the American diplomat used this term in order to extend the trading relationships with India, the investment relationships with India. So, what is this friendshoring concept? That offshoring, outsourcing, these are all very common phenomena. No company can avoid them or escape these. In order to be competitive, in order to cut costs, they have to set up their manufacturing abroad or have to give contracts. So why not give those contracts to politically more stable countries and friendly countries with which you have better diplomatic relations? So rather than blindly running to China for all kind of manufacturing, you should look forward to more countries around with which there will be more stability and more leverage of the American government. Okay. On China, the US leverage is very poor. So something wrong happens with a company, the American diplomats can do very little in context of China. But for example, in case of Poland, they can do a lot of things because with Poland, America has much better leverage. So America is promoting that American companies should invest more in Poland, should invest more in Thailand, should invest more in Philippines, India. India is also one of those countries under friendshoring. And similarly, Vietnam is also one of the key beneficiaries of that. And what is the context to all of that? Why they are talking about friendshoring? Because of the COVID, the global trading system, the global supply chain broke down. China was the most important supplier, and when China put Wuhan under lockdown, and for a long time, Chinese ports, ships were not accessible or were not easily available throughout the world, it almost broke the global supply chain. And that gave a very tough lesson to everyone else that first of all, do not be completely dependent on China. Secondly, not just for your bilateral purposes, but even the global supply chain should not depend on China. So your manufacturing system should be set up in multiple corners of the world, so that one corner get into problem, one region get into problem, the supplies from other regions can continue to come. For example, let us say we talk about a car company. Let us say we're talking about Honda. Now, Honda can completely manufacture out of one location in China or one location in USA. But let us say because of some major event, let us say very big hurricane is there around their location in USA. And because of that, the location at which their manufacturing was is not able to export to other regions in the world for 1 month because the hurricane broke down the local port. So unfortunate events can always happen. Now, in that case, if Japan would instead had, or this company Honda would instead had their manufacturing centers at least 4 or 5 places in the world, and not just in USA. For example, if they also had one in Poland in Europe, they had one in India, they had one in, let us say, Nigeria or somewhere in Botswana in Africa. Similarly, one in Latin America. Then to all those regions, they could supply from the local center. So global supply should not be centered at one place. That is one of the core lessons people learned or the countries learned after the COVID crisis, and also the later on the Russia-Ukraine war and number of other issues that have emerged since. So that has emerged, or that has led to emergence of a concept called friendshoring. Okay, so that was the context to it. You understand the meaning. What is offshoring, you know, and the offshoring that you are doing should happen with a specific set of countries with which you have good relations. So that is the entire concept of friendshoring. So there are two major dimensions. First of all, you do not want to depend on one location or two locations. Secondly, you do not want to give too much investment to hostile countries or non-supportive countries. These are the two major concepts behind friendshoring. Now, there are more related terms that you need to be aware of. For example, offshoring itself you should know. Outsourcing you should need to know. BPO, KPO, contract manufacturing, onshoring. All these terms are important. And what is the difference between different terms? So we'll cover all of those. For example, let me give you a small glimpse here. For example, when we talk about offshoring, we are talking about a company setting up its own manufacturing unit abroad. That is offshoring. Okay, going across its own shores means crossing the sea to some other location, but the same company is going. So when a company sets up manufacturing abroad, that is offshoring. Whereas outsourcing is when the company itself is not setting up factory abroad or workshop abroad. The company is just giving a contract to a foreign companies to supply certain cars in their requirement, or they do not give them order for complete car, they give them order for car parts. So you give away some of your manufacturing task to some of the other countries abroad, and you give them very specific design, you give them all the details, and they manufacture according to your instruction and material. And that is outsourcing, and also known as contract manufacturing. Outsourcing, contract manufacturing are very much related. Contract manufacturing is a type of outsourcing. In fact, BPO is also a type of outsourcing. So BPO, KPO, contract manufacturing, all three are different types of outsourcing. So that also you need to be aware of, and we'll cover these in the other terms. Okay. So in the full program, when we'll discuss all the terms, related terms as well. And when you understand all the rainbow of the terms, when you understand not just one term, but all the related terms as well, your conceptual clarity will improve and your retention will also be much better. I hope for now this term is clear and you have been able to understand both the context and also the different dimension from which question can come. Question can, by the way, also come in the area that what are the benefits of friendshoring or what are the dangers of friendshoring. Okay, so benefits of friendshoring, for example, it can make global supply chain more resilient. Okay, when you are trying to diversify from one location to multiple location, it can stabilize the global supply chain. For example, that is what we have mentioned here in the impact analysis: supply chain stability. Then global trade dynamics can change. The trade which is dominated by China can change and other countries can also feature in. Similarly, there are other impact. For example, it can also have negative impacts. The foreign policy footprint on the companies can mean that government is interfering too much into private sector. That can be somewhat of a negative outcome as well. So these are the different terms, and I've also discussed many of the related terms, so with which we have covered the topic of friendshoring. Let us move to the next term.